Juggling family and work life has been a challenge since the 1960s, and you would think with the development of technology that we'd actually have it nailed by now. But we haven't, and the last 12 months, 2020 into 21, has exacerbated the situation with so many changes happening from working at home, homeschooling, and all of the changes that have been going on in amongst all of that. So how do you manage family life and work life in these changing times? My name's Jules Wyman, and I'm a personal and professional coach. And whilst I'm not a parent myself, I have worked with hundreds of parents over the last 15 years as a coach and looked at various ways that they can manage their work life and the demands there with their family life and the demands in that situation. And that's what I want to share with you today, is the kind of like the 3 A's, is that what we're going to look at, of how you can start making a difference for yourself and start being able to manage your home and work life even more effectively now. Which is, if you're watching this, I'm assuming what you want to do. The one thing I want to flag up is a recognition that all of these three A's are adaptable to your own lifestyle, because no household is the same, no work life is the same, no home life is the same. So it needs to be adaptable. And it's one of the first things that I would flag up is please stop comparing yourself to other people who you think have got it together or got it all sorted. What you can do is, if possible, have a conversation with them and see what they're doing that's working and see whether you can apply that in your life. But the majority of us don't. We look at other people's lives and we compare we are to where we think they are and how they are, which is usually behind a social media filter. And we assume that they've got it all together. We assume that they are dealing with everything and managing it and everything looks rosy and shiny and perfect. Well, if it did, I wouldn't be being requested to make videos like this and frequently having conversations with clients around these kinds of situations. And I wouldn't have my 3 A's to be able to talk and share with you today. So the first thing I wanted to say is recognize that you want to adapt this to your own household and to step away from comparing yourself to other people, because it's a confidence killer. It's not helpful. You're not in their household and they're not in your household. They haven't got your work life and vice versa. Everyone's got a different way of dealing with things. So just drop the comparison and let's start looking at how you can manage your family and your work life in an even more effective way now. None of these A's are particularly sexy or glamorous. I do apologise up front, but one thing that they are is effective. The first one is attitude. And before I mentioned that word and before I even asked you this question of what is your attitude right now, were you aware? Were you aware of the attitude that you're bringing even to watching this video? Are you bringing your attitude, or is your attitude bringing you? As I've said in one of the other videos in this series, between 90 and 98% of your thinking every single day is happening automatically. We can't do anything to make it stop, but we can have an awareness of it. It's not happening consciously, but that non-conscious thinking is therefore then impacting the attitude that we bring to situations. And actually, when we stop and think about it, is the attitude that I have right now the one that's going to be most helpful for the situation that I'm in? For example, there are days when I've woken up and I need to do this filming and I've just not had the attitude that's most helpful to do it. So I will put on music, or I will go for a walk, or I will do something else to change the attitude so that I can bring a far more resourceful attitude to the situation. I'm also aware that at times the attitude could be this background noise that, again, I spoke about in one of the other videos, that could be saying that, I'm no good, I can't do this, I'm going to get it wrong, I won't remember what I want to say, no one's going to engage, all of that kind of thinking, which is then going to influence my attitude of nervous or distracted or uncomfortable or whatever it may be. And again, that's then not going to be helpful for the situation that I'm dealing with. So what is your attitude right now? Because what I notice is that the attitude most people bring to situations is automatic. It's not one that they've taken the time to think about. But what attitude could you consciously bring to any conversation that you're about to have today, or any email, or any meeting? What is the attitude that you could bring? And not the attitude of, well, they don't deserve me to have a good attitude. The attitude is about you, because it's going to be you that's experiencing it, you that's going to be having the challenges around it, and it's going to be affecting your day. So what attitude is going to be the most effective, resourceful, helpful, constructive one to bring to the situations that you're facing today? And you can utilize, as I've already intimated, you can utilize different things in order to be able to help you do that, whether that is going for a walk, whether that is using music, or whether that is organizing your space so that your attitude is very delineated. This is my workspace, so I'm working right here, right now. But the moment I finish, then my attitude is that this goes away so that I can bring a different attitude to my home space. Whatever it may be, might be, as I said, leaving the house or coming home again. That is going to enable me to create different attitudes for myself. And a lot of us who are no longer commuting because we're working from home have got that kind of blurred sort of like merging between one and the other and dipping back in and out. When in fact, if we can just do simple things for ourselves, that can help clarify the attitude, because otherwise we can end up bringing our parent attitude into work and vice versa. And your colleagues probably don't want to be parented, and equally your children don't want to be bossed around in a managerial way that you would do at work. And I'm not saying that that's what you do, but I'm sure you get my drift. So be mindful of your attitude and look at the attitude that you have right now. And could I bring a different one? Could I bring a different one? What would be the most helpful one for me to bring to this situation? The second A is probably more related to children than it is related to your colleagues, but it is still required from your colleagues, but it's the one that children notice more, and that is attention. If we are, I absolutely, I'm listening. I am listening to you. How many of us do that? We say that we're listening to people, and quite often with our children, we're busy typing away and, doing something and saying that they've got our attention, and they know that we haven't, and they haven't got our attention. So make sure that you give your attention to whatever you're doing, whether that is the meeting, whether that is the email or the conversation that you're having with a colleague, or whether it is your child or your spouse or your partner, is to give them your 100% attention. Now, if that's not possible to do because you're in the middle of something else, then be very clear with them. I can't give you my attention right now. Give me 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever the time is. Make sure you're specific. Very often, and I'm going to talk about this in our third A of accuracy, very often we'll say, just give me a minute, or I'll be a couple of secs. Now, the thing is that's not accurate in the way that we are communicating. And especially for a young person, they're kind of like, well, what does that actually mean? So be very clear with them as to when you can give them your attention. And when you stick with that, and again, this, it may not just be your children, it may be your colleagues. I can't answer that right now. So say, for example, I know that sometimes you can be in the middle of something and the phone might go, or if you are in the office, a colleague comes over and they want to grab your attention, but you're in the middle of something that what you really are focused on. Is just be clear and let them know, I can't talk to you right now, but can I come and find you in 10 minutes, half an hour, 5 minutes, whatever the time is. And once you've finished what you've done, make sure that is the first thing that you go and do. We can very easily be distracted with things pinging and pulling our attention all over the place. Our job is to bring that and be attentive to what needs our attention right here, right now, because when we can do that, we channel that into our energy into that, because where your attention goes, your energy flows. And very often we feel so depleted and tired because our energy is being pulled all over the place. And that's why we feel unfocused and unprepared and not able to do things, because our energy is darting around everywhere. But when we give what needs our attention, be that a person, be that a child, be that an email, be that a meeting, be that a project, doesn't matter. But when you give that your attention, your energy flows in that direction. And when you finish that, you can then give the other thing, whatever that other thing or person may be, your attention for that period of time. And make sure that you put these things down when you are having a conversation with someone. Don't be distracted, even if you have to put it in your back pocket, or even just say, give me 1 minute, let me send this email, and then you have my undivided attention. Because that's what people cherish, and that's what people really want and need at this point in our lives. And the conversation around being specific in relation to how long it's going to be before you give that person your attention leads on to accuracy, because there's a bit of a blurred experience if we say just give me a couple of minutes, or I'll be there in 3 seconds, or that's not accurate. And actually what we're looking for in our communication with each other is accuracy, and especially when it comes to managing that family life and our work life, is that accuracy of how much time you've got to give to things can be a very helpful way of delineating where we're spending our time, giving our attention. But it gives us the opportunity to be able to manage that in a far more effective way for ourselves. But most of the time we are not accurate in our speaking, but also in our thinking. Because our thinking, very often we make assumptions. We assume that we know what somebody is going to say, how they're going to be, and what their needs are. And that accuracy can be what trips us over. When it comes to managing family life and work life, one of the things I notice with clients is that they make assumptions as to what colleagues or children need from them without actually asking. And very often what we can end up doing then is we're then fulfilling what we think their needs are, and that can miss. So a simple question can be, what do you need from me today? Or what do you need from this conversation? Or what do you need from me this week? So when I'm working with a client one-on-one, that question is at the forefront of my mind the moment we start every single call. What do you need from this call today? What's going to make this the best use of your time? And even though clients know that the question's coming, quite often they will say, well, actually, I don't really know. Okay, well then tell me what's going on for you. And through that conversation, we can then start to hear, okay, so actually what you might need is, and does that sound like right that you might need X, Y, and Z? And that's where we can get the clarity. And from that clarity, we can make sure then that that's where the conversation goes. Now, from a managing your family and work perspective, quite often we make these assumptions of what our colleagues are and the expectations they have of us, and equally of our children and what their expectations and family life, their expectations have. But we haven't had that conversation. So we can end up either over-delivering or under-delivering, because we expect that you're absolutely fine and don't need me, or vice versa, and don't think that you are fine and that you massively need me. But we haven't actually had that conversation. So we're not coming from that point of accuracy. What do you need from me? And actually what I need from you. So for example, if you're working from home and the kids are wanting your attention and you actually need to get this piece of work done, you can say to them, look, what I really need from you is for you to entertain yourselves for the next 45 minutes. Sometimes setting a timer can be very helpful, both for you and for them. And to be really silent as much as possible, because I need to concentrate on this piece of work. Once this piece of work is finished, what would you like us to do? Because by you giving me that time, that means that my brain is free to be able to give you my 100% attention. And when young people understand that kind of like exchange, actually they're going to be more accurate with how they are and how they communicate. Well, what I really need from you today is, so for example, with one of my clients, they were making the assumption that as their teenager was disappearing off to their room a lot, that actually they didn't need mum, they didn't need her to be around. And yet there was this one particular blowout of an explosive argument. And what transpired is the young person then turned around and said, "You're never around, you never want me, you never want to have a conversation with me." And mum was like, "But I didn't think you wanted me to, because you're always off in your room." And as through the conversation went, "Well, okay, well, what do you need from me? Tell me what it is that you need from me at the moment in this situation that we have." And the young person kind of floundered and found their way, but through that conversation, and it wasn't an easy conversation, but through that conversation, they started to explore not just what the child needed from the parent, but also what the parent needed from the child. And this communication meant that they became even more supportive of each other. And I think when you start to have that level of conversation, that you're being very accurate with what those needs are, from a child to parent perspective, but also from a colleague to colleague perspective, you're then clarifying those expectations. So rather than over expecting and over assuming or even under, is that you're very clear then on what's being required from the other person, and it makes it far easier to be able to negotiate whether that is something that's achievable or not. So throughout those three things of your attitude, the attention, and your accuracy, they may not sound very glamorous as to how to be able to manage your family and work life, but all three of them, when you put them into practice, are going to make significant differences for you, because they all feed into each other. How accurate you are being with your speaking and your thinking is going to impact on your attitude. How your attitude is going to impact your attention. So they're always feeding each other in different ways and across the circle as well. So take the time to think about, what is the attitude that I'm bringing to this situation, and could I bring what would be a more helpful attitude for me to bring? Be aware of the attention that you are bringing, and actually, are you bringing attention or are you being distracted? What can you get rid of to stop the distractions in order for you to be focused and give that attention? And also look for accuracy. So getting that clarification of your expectations and understanding what is needed from you, for you, and from those people around you as well. So it becomes a two-way conversation. That way, by applying that AAA method, you will find that managing your work life and family life takes a completely different dynamic.